Good Wednesday evening, everyone. I'm Scotty Powell here with the Carolinas Weather Group, and we welcome you to tonight's show. This is Mr. Jim Edds, and he's going to be talking to us all about his hurricane stories. He's a hurricane chaser, not a regular chaser. He gets out in the elements. We just posted a video on our Facebook page just a couple minutes ago, so Jim's going to tell us all about his experience and chasing hurricanes. And as last week we kind of introduced, hurricane season started off on Monday. And last week we had Dr. John Scala on just kind of talking about the ins and outs of hurricanes and what to expect this season. And then tonight Jim's going to give us a firsthand experience with all those people who are in the Western Carolinas, out in Tennessee, over in Oklahoma, who don't get to experience it hitting the coastline. Jim's going to tell us all about it. So looking forward to that tonight. This is the June 3rd edition. It's just after 8 o'clock. So if you are watching us on replay, we appreciate it. This is also going to be broadcasted back on a podcast. So just go to your local favorite app store and you can download that probably on Thursday night or Friday morning once we get everything downloaded. We also have a question and answer session. So if you have a question for Jim, shoot it over through the QA tab or Twitter or Facebook, and we'll make sure that we get that question passed along. Due to time constraints and what we know is going to be a great show with Jim telling us all the stories, we're going to kind of cut all the introductions out, and I'm going to toss it over to Ricky, who's going to be conducting our interview tonight. Ricky?
Alrighty, speaking of weather in North Carolina, I got a tornado warning right now for Beaufort County. That's what's heading up across our area. And Jim, you probably have a lot of experience with eastern North Carolina and some of those counties. Over the years, you've been in, what, 52 different hurricanes or tropical systems?
Yeah, I'll have to add one more typhoon, Typhoon Dolphin over there, Guam and Rhoda to the mix.
Yeah.
Not as many as some of these old timers that came before me, but I'm getting up there.
Well, I mean, you still got some years to get out there and enjoy them. But how did it all begin for you? I mean, why hurricanes, and how did you find yourself in the eye of a Category 5 many years ago?
Yeah, I went to school. I was a third-year chemistry and had a boating accident spearfishing, and so I missed my senior year, and I finally finished it, worked 8 years as a polymer chemist, making stuff like fingernail polish, road paint, milk carton inks. A friend of mine died of cancer, and then I just, after the funeral, I said, man, life's too short to keep a miserable day job for a long time. So I lived on Pensacola Beach, and I said, I think I want to go to the Florida Keys and be an underwater photographer and give it a shot. I don't know if you can make money at it, but I was just going to give it a shot. So I figured out how to get a day job down there working for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, which is not an easy thing because those sweet jobs are taken up. There's a lot of competition. So I took a big pay cut and went down there, and it was just after Hurricane Andrew, and I had been in a few hurricanes and typhoons, and I always thought it was kind of fun, and everybody runs inside and the board's up and the wind picks up and the trees bend over, they go horizontal, and I was interested in that, but it wasn't until that I met somebody at the Hurricane Center, Todd Kimberlin. He's actually a forecaster right now. He was a volunteer in high school. Back in the old days, in the 80s, if you wanted information about hurricanes, you got it on the news or you called your weather service, but they got tired of me calling because storms that were not coming into the Gulf of Mexico, they didn't want to give you coordinates on. So I'd call the Hurricane Center, and I always get Todd, and I guess they got tired of me, but they'd give the phone over to Todd and said, Todd, talk to this guy, and so we started chatting, and he talked forever. It's just kind of guy I needed, and gave me all kinds of information. He put me in touch with a guy named Jim Leonard, who passed away this past winter. Jim stayed in touch with me. I met him in the Florida Keys. He had some crazy idea. He's going to go to Guam and catch typhoons. And I said, look, I grew up there. You won't get any typhoons. But he goes over there and he gets Yuri and Omar and comes back with some of the best footage that anybody's ever gotten out of a hurricane. And in 1998, I was looking for something different. I would save up all my vacation time to, I had a lot of vacation time. Jim Leonard, who just got back from Puerto Rico, where he went down there just to get close to Hurricane George. It turned and went right down the middle of Puerto Rico. I was keeping up with him, and I said, well, if you come back to the Florida Keys, we'll go down there and you can hit it again in the Key West. So that was my first chase with Jim Leonard, and it was great because I went to the Jim Leonard School of Hurricane Chasing. He showed me how to stay safe. I thought I could do some new and innovative things with it, bridging the underwater photography with the house systems. You have to shoot with a house camera with seals, O-ring seals, and you have to do a few things to make it work on land, but I thought that I could do something different than what I had seen out there. And chased with Jim for 2 years, and I graduated, and then I was on my own. And so that's how I got into hurricane chasing.
And when you head out to these storms, I mean, what's your typical go-to items? What do you bring with you? What's in your go bag?
Yeah, I've got a suitcase already packed. It's behind me. It's a bright yellow suitcase, so I can easily find it on the conveyor. I keep a roller bag with all the gear in case they're going to lose your luggage. Sooner or later, they're going to lose it. So you want to be able to salvage the shoot with what you have carry on. So it's a little tripod. It's a Canon 5D2. It was a Sony NX5U, but now I'm looking to go 4K. GoPro sent me a GoPro 4. Recently, so I'll be playing around with that. Paper towels, you got lens dry. You got to lock cameras down. What I do, I shoot stock footage, and shoot 10 seconds, and you lock it down. It's going to sell. If your hand holding it shaky, it's probably not going to sell. Maybe in a program, but it's just pure stock footage that has multiple uses, multiple sales. It's not going to sell. It's a little bit more of a pain, but that's I carry that. I carry now, after that nasty typhoon in the Philippines, Typhoon Haiyan, I carry some radio satellite communication gear so that I can update Facebook and Twitter and let everybody know that I'm okay, because I was 3 days off the grid after that Typhoon Haiyan. So I carry some antibiotics and it's called a life straw. It's about that long. You put it in muddy water, and you can drink fresh water out of it. It filters it through this special membrane and takes all the bugs out of it. So yeah, anything you need to do to shoot or to stay extended, days there, because if we're always trying to get the worst storm, the worst part of the storm, so we can record that and get things that people have never seen and tell that story of a storm that's going to hit there anyway. So you try to protect your gear, use your knowledge how to stay safe, but capture the winds. I have a barometer that the Kestrel 4500. I just started doing that after Haiyan. This one's waterproof. The one in Haiyan was not. I jumped in the pool. That one shorted out. But now I want to get a good pressure trace before and after the storm. So there's a lot of things that go into the gear bag.
Basically anything to stay alive. But let's transition a little bit to some of the stories, because I know you've got some good ones. Let's start it off probably with the biggest one, and that would be, I would assume, Typhoon Haiyan, right?
Yeah, Jim Leonard always told me, he says, if you want to get a really bad, really strong hurricane, you go to the deep tropics. So that would be the Caribbean down here, a place, maybe down in Haiti, Jamaica, Grand Cayman was Ivan, borderline Cat 4 or 5. In the Pacific, where they have 3 times as many storms, the getting's really good out there, because the islands in the Caribbean tend to run east and west. So they're out there, but they're harder to get hit. The islands out there in the Pacific tend to run north and south, or at least you have some room to maneuver and to work your way north or south. The Philippines, about the same latitude as Guam. I think that's almost 14. The area that I'm talking about, but there was one that spun up. We could see it on the models almost a week before it happened. It was going to stay strong and it was going to stay low in the Philippines, just like the one BOFA the year before it did that hit Mindanao. And I said, if I ever get another shot at that one, I'm going to go there. And I remember I saw the models, I saw it spinning up, and I called my girlfriend Judy, and I said, Judy, you know, the GFS is spinning up something here, and it's one of these that I think it's going to be really strong hitting the Philippines. Always one that I wanted to get to because Philippines is pretty remote, and I wanted to get there. Another reason so that I could get the word out about how bad it was. And she said, yeah, I think you ought to go. So she kind of like pushed me over the edge and talked me into that. But you got to be careful because you're looking at the models. That's GMT time. It's all set. And then you got to think, okay, it's central here in Pensacola, and then it's another plus 14 or 15 hours in the Philippines. So I remember I worked out the schedule, and I go, oh no, I'm a day late. I gotta change the flights and everything. And then shoot, I went from Pensacola to Houston to Hawaii to Guam to Manila. Then I had to stay up. I got in at 10. I had to stay up all night, and at 3 in the morning I had to jump on one of 4 planes, one going down to Tacloban and two further north, and then because you don't know, this thing could take a dive, but luckily for me, the one in Tacloban was good because the steering currents were pretty strong. Actually, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center nailed it on their warning number 2. 5 days out, they said it was going to hit Tacloban, which that never happens. But that time of year, they stay low and they tend to go more straight. So yeah, I got there. I got there 24 hours before it hit, and went to a motel. The Wi-Fi is no good. I said, take me to another one. And I ended up staying at the resort that was probably the strongest structure there, up 17 feet above sea level. I didn't know it was above sea level. That's probably what would save some people there. But you know, this super typhoon. I remember the night before I was on Twitter, and I said, well, you should get some sleep. And then I put my head back down on the pillow, and it was just spinning because it was already like 180. So I'd get up and get back on Twitter, and it'd be like, okay, it's 185. Then I'd go out and do some pictures, come back, and 195, and just couldn't sleep, so I stayed up the whole night, which is good because back in the U.S. and Europe it was daytime, so I could work that. And I stayed up all night long for that. At 195, and said, "Are you scared?" And I said, thinking about Charley in 2004, hit my border. That scared the beavers out of me. I said I was scared in 45. I had a plan. If I was going to come pick me up at the motel, take me down to Tulog to get in the eye. He showed up at 5 in the morning, and I said, "Here, go home. This is going to be awful." There was no way to be on that road going south with the super typhoon coming. It was just scary because you know, 195, you know, Joint Typhoon Warning Center, they're not wanting to exaggerate the numbers, and if they said 195, you can bet it was every that. So, I'm pretty scared. You know what, I'm just going to shoot it here. You know, I went down there, they had breakfast, and you got to remember, the Philippines, they get typhoons a lot. They probably get 7 typhoons a year. And, you know, they say no.
Hey, Jim, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Yep.
Can I have you turn off your webcam because I think your bandwidth is being limited a little bit, and so if you do that, the audio will come across better.
Turn off my webcam?
Yeah, at the very top, there's a button that says Turn Camera Off, and there should be 5 buttons if you hover over the video screen.
Push that.
Mute microphone, turn camera off. Yeah.
Oh, is it eating the bandwidth?
Yeah, so if you click Turn Camera Off, then we'll have better bandwidth and better audio there.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay, you know, I had a couple of windows open that I just closed, and maybe I was running 2 cameras or something.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're breaking in and out, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was a long night, and I stayed on.
And
Did we lose him completely?
all right, well, now we may have lost him completely. Jim's just imagining he's actually in a hurricane where he has bad bandwidth and can't hear us very well. I will shoot him a Twitter message, and we'll work on that. In the meantime, why don't we go ahead and have Chris talk a little bit, since he's actually back on the panel for the first time. And let's see, how old am I? 22, so 21. I think it was about 3 years ago or something like that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, who is this Chris guy?
I don't know. He's kind of weird, though.
How are ya?
Good. I'm glad to be back on. I've gone through some stuff the past few months, but I'm feeling better now and just happy to be joining you guys again. Hopefully it'll be more often.
We're ready for that. We're ready for the Tri-City trio or Tri-City duo.
Yeah, really. It's gotten dangerous up here with this Ricky guy coming up.
I'm telling you.
I mean, if you were a reporter, we could hire you, Scotty, and it could be the trio, but...
Yeah.
You know, let me see what I can do about that. We'll
we're
see.
a producer. We're looking for those, too.
I can be your producer. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll wing it.
Oh, man.
Well, you guys...
We had that tornado warning in eastern North Carolina, though, too.
Yeah, this is back in the old days where we really didn't have a topic to talk about, so...
I'm working on getting
Jim. Improvise.
We can just yeah. So what was the weather like today over there in Tennessee? It was boring here.
Well, scattered showers and thunderstorms. Summer type stuff.
Sounds familiar.
I don't know. I'm sure Ricky has told you it's probably for a good portion of our area, May was the driest on record. But in the past few days, some areas have gotten a good amount of rain, and in fact, I was desperately trying to get a downpour on one of our cameras to do a time lapse, and it just sat to the west of downtown Bristol. So they got like 1.5 inches of rain on it was radar estimated like 1.5 inches. So,
we're sitting there in the weather center. We're sitting there in the weather center, and Chris is like, "Let's shoot this time lapse." And all of a sudden, we pan the camera towards the Bristol sign, and it's this magnificent, really shocking video of dark skies, almost like looks like a shelf cloud trying to form. And Chris is like, whatever. Just turns it back towards where the rain is. And he's like, let's shoot this.
I just wanted that downpour, man. And then eventually I was like, wait, hold on. That is a shelf cloud trying to form, kind of like the outflow coming in and everything, and I was like, okay, let me just listen to Ricky on this one. And we didn't really get much, but we tried.
Hey, Chris, I want to get your take on this as Jim comes back in. We were talking about this before the show. Ricky was kind of upset that he didn't get to see the big hailstorm in Pigeon Forge. What about you?
I was really upset only because I've never really seen anything like that. It was, I mean, I know I hate saying things like what I just said because a lot of the national media and people will say it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. But seriously, that was something special. So I'm kind of kicking myself that yesterday was my day off. I should have gone down there and chased a little bit, but I didn't. Instead, I was working on a presentation for the AMS broadcast conference next week.
Yeah, you weren't.
Chris is going to be our guest in about 2 months if he knows it or not, because we need a topic, and Chris sounds like a good topic for a show, his That's AMS right. presentations.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was about to say, you're just going to have me talk randomly?
No, I literally just thought of that 30 seconds ago.
The last 2 minutes we've let you talk randomly and we've got nowhere. So.
Oh yeah.
I'll go ahead and put you on the calendar. Let's see, August the 12th, 18th.
So now that we seem to have Jim back, let's try and get this back going again. Jim, if you'd like to, you can also try to turn off your camera or limit the bandwidth and see if that helps. You seem to be okay for right now.
You know, I have 105 down and 20 up, so there should be a problem. But lately, though, Comcast has been doing some squirrely things. So if I cut out again, then I'll just go to LTE here and then hotspot that over.
All right, sounds good. So we were talking about the Super Typhoon Haiyan and how you went through that and how you just got there and didn't get much sleep. And then let's go to when the storm hit and just how violent it was. Was that the storm you had to jump in the pool for, or was that the...
Yeah, that's the one. You know, I made one mistake. I forgot how fast it was moving, and storms that are moving 20, 22 miles an hour, there's going to be a really sudden wind shift, and unless you're looking at radar, you're not gonna know. So I remember I made a tweet. I said, I'm gonna go out and shoot. I'll be back in a bit. So I grabbed the regular camera, but the big camera, the Sony camera on a tripod, it was getting water on the lens, and there was nothing I could do because it was just blowing all around. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to grab the GoPro on a monopod and go out there. So I walked out to the back, and I saw the water and the wind coming off the water. That's where I like to go. I like to go where the wind and the water meet the shoreline. That's where you're going to get the strongest footage, usually. And I remember just trying to hold that GoPro steady against this concrete post, and then the wind just started. It turned into a whiteout, and it just came right in off the water. A few minutes later, I turned around, and there were trees falling down behind me, and I couldn't stand up, and I said, "Oh boy, I'm a good 100 meters from the lobby," and the only thing between me and the lobby was open space and a few villas. So I said, "Oh, you better start working your way back." The wind shifted more out of the east than northeast, and it was fierce. It was, because I always swore after Charley I would never get outside in a Cat 4. I'd always be inside or somewhere protected on all sides, maybe just one face looking out. But no, I was stuck out there. So I remember running to the first villa, and I was down low, and it was just getting stronger and stronger. And I tried to go around villas, and the wind was just pushing me around. I couldn't get where I wanted to go, and that's to the lobby. So I did see a pool, and I did see some shots there that I thought would be interesting. I saw the lawn chair get blown sideways and total whiteout. And so the photographer in me took over, forgot about the danger for a few minutes, and I said, "Wow, I got to get on that pool. Look at the water's blowing out of that pool." I said, "You don't see that every day." So I got down there low, and I was like this, an old man like me, I don't like getting all crimped up. So what the heck? I just jumped in the pool. It was an easier shot. Plus, yeah, I like the water. If you think about it, you're okay in the water. It's a pool. It's the stuff flying that's gonna get you. I had a helmet, so I just went down, and I'd never worked with a GoPro before, and I turned it on me, and then I turned it around, and then I did some things to try to keep the lens clean, and I tried to, without my glasses, to frame things up because I had the LCD back on there, and I said, hey, this might work. And but eventually I had to get out of that pool, and I got some video of me crawling out of the pool, and I go behind another villa, and I remember, and I found out after the storm that I got hit by something. They had this ceramic roof tile, and things were starting to fly in the air and hit that roofing tile, and it was shattering. You see a lot of it down in South Florida. They're real big on that. Not so much the asphalt, but the ceramic roof tile. I tried to come around the corner of this one villa, and something hit me in the back of the leg, and I ran back around. I said, well, that's not going to work. It was a piece of ceramic tile that cut the back of my leg, and it went in about a half inch. And but I didn't. It just felt hot, so I said, shoot. I did make it across this little sidewalk and get to the lobby. And then I was okay, but people got in trouble in the Philippines that were on the shoreline. It's hundreds and thousands of little villages all up and down Samar, Leyte, and this area it's got some historical significance. It's where MacArthur came back and landed when he said, "I shall return." He landed at Leyte, right there, just south of the city. So. And at one time, that Tacloban was the capital of the Philippines. But when that hurricane came through, the backside winds pushed all the water up in the bay, and there's a strip of land the airport runway is on, and a lot of people lived out there. It was 20 feet of water went across there. When I got a boat ride out of there, I met one guy. He had lost his family. He climbed up a tree, the ones that were still standing, his coconut tree, and he hung on for dear life, and everybody else in his family died. So it was storm surge. You just don't want to be near that. You see it up in the Outer Banks. It's treacherous. It may look good, but it's just you just got to be at high ground because that's what got most of the people in the Philippines. It's easy to get out of the wind. I saw 10 huts that survived that typhoon, but if the water got in there, people get scared. They may not know how to swim. I didn't see things, but it wasn't a big wave that came in. It was just an increase of the water and going down streets and filling things up, and people just got nowhere to go. And yeah, it was a pretty bad storm surge event.
Let me ask you, I mean, when you got in there, let's backtrack just a little bit. What was the public perception like? Did they know a storm was coming? Were the city or officials prepared? Do they have storm shelters like we do here in the United States, or what's the preparedness level?
If you see TV and it says they're evacuating cities in the Philippines, don't believe it, because look, they're poor people. They got no place to go. Where are you gonna? You got couple $100? No, you ride it out at home. If you're 100 feet from the water, you ride it out there, or maybe you go somewhere in the interior. But they weren't keeping up with it like I was. You know, I was seeing 180, 190. There's two kinds of hurricanes, I say. There's the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then there's the 4s and 5s. And if you haven't been in one, just be really, really safe if you ever go into a 4 and 5, because it's not like the 1s, 2s, and 3s. It's you got to go see. Yeah, it's a very dangerous event, so you got to be really careful. They thought it was a banana bender. You know, they said, okay, hurricane, we can do the same thing we do every time. We're just going to go to so-and-so's, or we're just going to stay here. We're going to get some water, and we're just going to ride it out. But they'd never seen anything push that much water up when the backside came through, and that's what got them in trouble.
When it comes to storm surge in systems like that, you know, go across the Pacific, there's really nothing to stop the storm surge, I would imagine. I mean, it's just so much ocean that you can move. You
see that, you know, I've been to a lot of places in the Atlantic, but when you see the size of the waves in the Pacific, look, it's huge. It's much bigger than the Atlantic. And the reason I did go to well, I knew that the full fury of the Pacific Ocean was coming across there. Now it's elevated, but you got to put your luggage somewhere. You got to bunk down. You don't want to be on ground level anything. You know, when there's a Category 6 coming through, as it was that radar station, the dome, something hit that and just blew that thing off. And there were 4 people that stayed there that worked with the PAGASA, the Philippine Weather Service. And all their power failed, so they didn't get any. They had a barometer, but it pegged and kept inking at 910 millibars. So it's likely that it was lower than that, but we'll never know for sure. But yeah, they lost a lot of people over there, and plus the run-up was in the nighttime. If you back off the coast a little bit, you can catch it in the daytime. And somebody that, you know, if you want to go sell your footage, you'd rather have more daytime. So you can at least see what you're shooting.
We've got a ton of different topics I wanted to hit on. We don't have a whole lot of time, so let me ask you one last question about this storm, and we'll get to a few different ones. What was the one thing that stuck with you, besides maybe the trauma and the disaster stage from this storm? From a meteorological standpoint, what was the one thing that stuck with you?
Oh, it was the total end game in all this weather business. I saw it. After 3 days, nobody was coming for the dead people. I mean, first day we were walking around and you were very conscientious, and by the third day you're just walking over dead people trying to get from one place to the next. The whole end game is to keep people safe. Everybody that has anything to do with weather, that's all connected to getting the word out to keep people safe, because you never want to see it. That should never ever happen. And I was just, and that's why I tell the story about Haiyan. It's just like, about 10,000 people died when you count up the ones they found and the ones that were missing. And it's just, it didn't have to be that way. So it's like the ferry over there in China. Was that a weather event? We got to stay more dialed into the weather. We have to. Whether we got to teach more courses in school, but weather gets you killed. And people are still dying because of weather events. And I just think that we need to double down. We can't figure out a way to impress people upon people to be aware of your weather that day and where you're going, and are you going to intersect it. That was a big thing that came away from me, is I finally get this weather why we do, you have a weatherman up there telling you what might be in store for you that day. It could save your life.
I've said before to a few friends that my profession is one of the very few that actually impacts everybody, no matter whether they want it to or not. They don't really have a choice. I mean, you're gonna need weather information sometime in your lifetime. So speaking of a storm that kind of was out of the normal, let's hit on Hurricane Charley real quick, because that was a storm that really strengthened as it approached, and you were down there, right, as that one got ready to come ashore?
Yeah, that was another one that I really didn't think I was going to make it out of that one. Look, we had, a good chaser has a plan. We're working up near just south of Tampa. The 11 a.m. forecast said just south of Tampa. It's perfect. But we had these little sprint cards in our laptops, and in 2004, that was pretty slick. It sure beat getting a phone call, someone telling you where to go. So I got to looking at him, going like, "Hey, Mark." Well, we had radios back then. I said, "We got to blast south here down to Port Charlotte or Fort Myers because this thing is coming in." And on the way down, the phones were ringing, and then it went from a Cat 2 to a Cat 4. And we thought, okay, we heard 145, and I'm going like, wow, ooh, what do I do? I've never been in 145. Well, what do you do? You're a storm chaser. You got to go. Yeah. So we got down to an empty town. The town was deserted. The emergency management sent everybody off the streets, including police, because they had their own problems. They were in a building that could take 115 mile-an-hour winds. Now they're looking for a building that could take 145. So they ended up at the airport, but there was nobody on the road. You knock on doors, nothing was open. So we met there with some other chasers, and I looked at the radar and I said, guys, it's coming right here. So everybody just spread out, and we went looking for places, and there was none. It wasn't a storm surge event. It was a small diameter, and the wind was blowing down the I think it's called the Peace River there. So I parked on the other side of this bank with Mark Rackley, who's, if you ever watch Gator Boys, he films for Gator Boys. He does Shark Week. Back then we were a little team, and I said, we'll park on this side of the bank because the wind was coming over the top of it. We were fine. I said, stupid. I said, during the eye, we'll come back and we'll move the cars to the other side. Don't ever think you're going to do something in the eye. That was crazy, because if you don't get the eye, and where I was on the outside of eye doctor's office, and the eye's coming there, the irony was not lost on me. You stepped out into that full-on wind, debris was going to hit you. You weren't going to make it. So as luck would have it, we got the small eye, and it was just for about 3 minutes. I bolted out of there after seeing roofs go down the road and flying, getting peeled off of buildings. I ran back to my car. It was a roof landed on my car. Mark was coming out of his car, putting the tape in, and he looked at me. I looked at him, and I put my head up, and I said, "What the heck happened to my car?" When I put my chest up in the wind, I was off flying. I went down about 35 feet and did a face plant off the asphalt, and came back up, and I was still looking at my car, and Mark said, "You got to get out of here." And I said, "Where do you got to go?" He says, "Follow me." And he just took off running, and I never did see him again. Yeah, so then I got in the car, ran around the other side of the bank, but gosh, dog, man, I tell you, beware of anything moving fast. If it's got a small eye, and don't go in there unless you got a safe place. You just can't do what I did and just park your car. You're going to lose it for sure. Something's going to fly. And I was downwind. His was first. I said, well, his would be wrecked before mine. No, it went right. My car's right next to his, and it went over and hit mine. So I don't know. Just bad things happen.
Take note of that, college storm chasers, and not preparing too well. But let's ask you, though, since you've been through some of these, I've always heard that it seems like the storms that are strengthening as they come ashore are always feel stronger than, let's say, a Category 2 that's just holding its strength. A strengthening Category 1 will feel stronger than that, too.
And you can tell. Look at Frederick in '79. He had lots of lightning. That's a little storm chaser kind of observation. If you see some lightning in it, that thing is getting juiced up. Like Katrina coming across Fort Lauderdale, in the Everglades. That thing was so lit up. You almost didn't have to use your headlights. There was so much lightning in that storm. That the one in Rhoda, the Dolphin, that one had some lightning in it, and you know, like 12 hours later, that thing is a Cat 4. So that's an indication it is. But yeah, you just get that hard wind, longer, and definitely they're stronger. Or you feel the wind more, and I think the trees and everything else is going to feel it more too, and break sooner than later.
It reminds me of Arthur here on the coast last year. I was in Beaufort. I drove down there and had a friend who has a concrete apartment complex away from the water, and we had so much lightning coming ashore. A couple hours before, and then the somewhat intensification that it underwent before it came ashore. But you mentioned Katrina, and we might as well jump to the big one here in the United States. How did that storm chase go? I mean, did you?
Yeah, that was a week-long storm chase for me. It was really great because I was in the Florida Keys at the time, and I drove up to Fort Lauderdale, and I caught a Cat 1 there. It just turned Cat 1, so you know you had free roam, go anywhere you want. And then I tried to follow it to Naples. That was a bad mistake. Don't try to follow a hurricane. It's just really bad weather and treacherous, and it's not. You're gonna get an accident or something. But meanwhile, you know, I wasn't really looking forward to going to Naples because that's a long trek across Alligator Alley. But I got an email, you know, using that Sprint card from NOAA. They said we got a spot on the G4 tomorrow that's going to fly around Katrina. Can you be in Tampa the next morning? Well, shoot, that wasn't very far. So the next morning I was in Tampa and I jumped on the G4. The NOAA, you know, the NOAA planes do mostly research. They'll do the other nitty-gritty pressure wind stuff, but most of what they do is research. So I jumped on that on August 26th, and we flew. We went out to the Bahamas. We came down South Cuba, and we went over to Cancun, and then we just did a big 35-point drops on point around that hurricane, and it was a good thing. We had radar up in the jet. It's a really cushy ride. They have 2 seats for folks like me, and I got to yak in with the flight director, Paul Flaherty, who's now head of the NOAA operations, and yeah, that was a historic day because that's when things got really, really interesting with it simmering out there in the drifting southwest in the Gulf. That means it was just winding up for that big move in and then hitting that loop current, and of course the rest is history.
You mentioned a week-long storm chase. Did you follow it all up in New Orleans? Or?
We landed 11. I uploaded the footage. The next day I went to see a friend in Gainesville, and then the next day I drove to my folks' house in Pensacola, and I just I ate. I just took a couple hours off, and I left, and my mom was crying, "You can't go." You know, they came out with this doomsday forecast. It was 175, and I think it was the Weather Service office in New Orleans that if you go out, you're going to die, and certainly pets, and I think they were trying to get everybody motivated to get out of there. So I left Mom crying, and then I ended up at the Biloxi Coliseum. I said, I like round things. Round is good in a hurricane, whether it's a water tower. See, the wind just wraps around, water wraps around. If you get something round, you're going to be all right. It's these big square things that don't do so good. So I saw that building, and I said, yeah, you know, if they'll search, because the guy said, you don't want to stay here because we're going underwater. I said, well, you know, no, it ain't coming up this high. This on the north side, and they were like 26 feet above sea level. Guess what? The water came up that high and then some. And I left the keys in the car and said, well, in case I have to go up that second floor ramp, I want to do that. And you see me running back, the surge is coming up, and jumped in the car and took it up to halfway up to the second floor ramp, and I had debris behind the tires, and gosh dog. But I know the Weather Channel, they left that spot and went over to a retirement home, and then they lost some satellite trucks because that place flooded out. A lot of people flooded their vehicles in that storm. But yeah, you know, I have never seen, even in Haiyan, you didn't have 28 feet of storm surge. You didn't have that much. Katrina pushed in, a weakening Katrina pushed in the most storm surge I've ever seen.
When you are out there, though, like with Katrina, you mentioned second floor. Is it parking garage or?
Well, it's a coliseum,
Okay.
and so they have in order to get equipment up to certain staging areas on the second floor, they have a ramp there where a lot of it was only just Bill Bill Holmes and his friends staying there. It was about 50 people, and I talked him into letting me stay in there, um, knowing that it was going to be bad there too. But I had to get it because that look, there was no place safe on the Mississippi coast for that one. Maybe at a casino, but they weren't taking anybody in there. So I had driven down to Waveland, and I know why they named it Waveland because the waves come in there pretty easily. You went swimming if you went down there, past Christian. You went swimming there. There's no place safe. But you remember Camille had come through there and set the benchmark. And a lot of people got in trouble. They said, "Well, I won't come past Camille." Well, it went way past Camille because the bigger diameter pushes more water in than a Camille, a smaller one. So yeah, I went there, but even there we had 4 feet of water coming inside, and it just filled up the bowl there. And you know, video cars floating off, the lights come on, horns honk, and they're toast. It was. I didn't stay there. That place was wrecked too bad. I did get out of there. I drove down the interstate back to Pensacola, and about 11:30 that night I got in bed. My folks live in Pensacola, and then I spent the night and woke up the next morning to another disaster. The flooding event in New Orleans. Yeah, that was tough. I'd say that the hardest part of all this is driving back home because you're spent, you overextended, you push yourself too hard, and if you have to drive or do something, you might fall asleep. You just got to be very careful of that drive back home.
Jim, that was one thing I was wanting to ask you. What was your experience like with Hurricane Katrina before the storm, during the storm, and even the after the storm? What was it like?
Yeah, I got up real early. The power went out about 4:30, so no more AC, darn. I got up early. As soon as there was enough light, I went down to where the water was coming across the road with my surge cam, and I filmed that. And until a piece of plywood came whipping by and landed, about 10, 15 feet away from me. It could take your head off. So I said, okay, it's time to go. And then there was another guy with me. I said, we got to get out of here and head back up the hill there to the Coliseum. There were some good shots. The waves were coming up the road, so I had the surge cam down low to get those shots. And then I hid behind the pilings with the big camera on a tripod and got some nice clean footage of full-on wind blowing all that Gulf of Mexico up the road. And gosh, it's amazing what the wind will do. The wind will blow the water up and flood a whole area. So I got inside, and then the first floor was flooding, so I had to carry all the stuff up to the second floor into a safe room. And even then, we were worried that it was going to keep on coming, and we were going to have to go even higher. So yeah, that was scary. And for people that don't really know what's going on, they were really scared. Bill Holmes was on the radio. He said that some people had died in the storm because I never saw anybody die in a storm until I got to the Philippines. So in Katrina, there was I think 1,500 or something like that. I didn't see anybody, but it was easy to see how people, if you stayed home, you went swimming in a lot of places because there's debris piled up in every road. Yeah, that was a really big event. And New Orleans flooding. I had done a show and I saw some footage about New Orleans flooding, and that was 2 months earlier, and then lo and behold, they're flooding. So yeah, if something hasn't happened to you in a long time, then it's probably gonna happen sooner than you think, because Mother Nature has a way of spreading out all these hurricanes over all the ocean. If you plot the last 100 years, you see everybody gets hit sooner or later. So that's some of the things I've learned.
It's a good way to transition to my next question. As we're starting to wrap us up, I have to jump off at 9, but if you're willing to stay around, I'm sure Scotty and Joe will have a few more questions.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask, from my perspective, what is the city most at risk in the United States?
I think, well, there's Tampa, there's Jacksonville. Those places I think they're in denial. You know, I think Tampa more than any other. They got a lot of coastline. Until you've been through one, and there's been a lot of new people come to Florida, even in places that have been hit. You really don't know what to expect. It's the people that are really ready are the ones that have been hit, that have generators, that know what to do. So yeah, Tampa. You know, if they ever get one to bend over there, and if it's strong, they're going to be in trouble. Go to Jacksonville. Look at all those tall pine trees. I'm looking around and I'm like, it's been a long time since you guys been hit because a Cat 1 is going to take a lot of these down. And you've got a house, you get trees coming down every direction. I talked to someone the other day that said in Katrina they had 5 pine trees hit their house, and they were homeless for a long time. So it could be a pine tree that gets you. You know, in Panama City during Ike, the day before, you had 2 tornadoes come through here and killed some people. So, gosh, dog, you know, there's all kinds of danger associated with these nasty hurricanes.
Jim, I lived in Jacksonville for a while, and I can tell you, I was there when Irene, at one point, was headed that direction before it made its turn, and the people in Jacksonville absolutely had no care in the world.
Yeah,
that storm whatsoever.
That's the way it works. That's it. Yeah, that's the way it works.
It's always going to turn. They live in the coastline curve, so they don't get hit. I heard all kinds of stories. They had no care in the world. There's going to be a lot of people down there that's going to learn a really tough lesson one day. Yeah,
because sooner or later, you know, one will get you, and we'll see how strong that is. But you know, the worst thing is overconfidence in your ability to get through something. That's so dangerous. That almost got me killed in Charley. You know, don't ever think you have seen it all. I got that way at one point, but I'm never that way again, because Mother Nature will throw something at you that you have never seen before, and you're way out of your league. So you've got to build some cushion into that, whether you know, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. It's that's the way she is. You know, you're always going to see something new, no matter how old you get.
Let's jump. No, okay, mic's off. Let's jump storms one more time as we wrap up my segment here. Over to the North Carolina version, because Hurricane Isabel was a big storm for North Carolina and Southeast Virginia. I've lost 3 trees in my backyard, portions of my roof, and a fence, and was without power for 10 days up in the Hampton Roads region. But you went through all the water down the Outer Banks, correct?
Right, yeah. You know, I have a friend in New Zealand named Jeff Mackley, and I would say him and Jim Leonard were doing this better than anybody. He was doing a show called Danger Man on Discovery Channel. And so he was just in South Korea catching a typhoon, and I said, well, come on over here. I'll show you some storm surge on the Outer Banks. And I think that was my first time to go on the Outer Banks, and I found a motel there that stayed open, and we stayed there, and then we went around looking at some good areas. It always pays to do some scouting to see what might look like a good shot when the wind and water picks up. We found a really low spot there. And you know, it wasn't that strong, but it had a lot of surge. But at this point, the winds were coming down, the pressure was going up, and I'm looking at the ocean, and it's just like a washing machine out there. And I've got my surge cam, and I go like, it's safe. And I turn my back, and within 10 seconds, a wave overhead nails me, and I'm down, and I'm moving forward, and there's a big truck in the road, and I'm getting ready to go right under the exhaust, and I was able to dig in my elbows before I hit that truck, and it's like, where did that come from? I didn't see it. You won't. It'd be like maybe 4 or 5 feet high, and it'd just be just a wall of water behind it. And so I learned to never turn my back on the ocean. Never. It's just treacherous. Especially, you get one every 15 minutes that comes through there. So just stay away from that coastline, unless it's enter at your own risk.
When that storm came ashore, though, how much of the Outer Banks went underwater to a certain extent? How much water was brought into the well?
Down there at Hatteras, we knew they were having a hard time because a lot of places the road's low. A lot of flooding in neighborhoods. I don't know whether it was fresh water or salt water. the areas that Jeff filmed, that place went under. In fact, I went sliding on my butt through a trailer park on that last big wave. But we didn't venture too far from our motel. The motel, his room was flooded out on the waterfront. It's interesting. They give you a cheaper rate on the waterfront rooms during a hurricane. I know why now. Don't ever take a waterfront room. Get up on the second floor and not on the waterfront. Don't make that mistake. See, I'm giving you a lot of tips to make your life easier.
That's good. You need to. We got to have another hurricane come across North Carolina, and you and I got to meet up out there or something. I'll be with News 5, and you'll be telling me what hotel room not to get.
Yeah, they're still letting you stay out there, because it's a big draw out there. I don't know. It baffled me that so many of the news media were staying out there. I said, it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be blowing sand, and in fact, there was one truck that on this beach road. We got out because I think we got a flat tire, and gosh dog, that blowing sand, you want to have all your body covered up. It's like being sandblasted. It hurts. So
the difference is that the meteorologists aren't in the position you just talked about.
Yeah.
But all four news reporters are. So
one of these days, it's a lifetime goal of mine is to spend a hurricane, hold up, and eating good food and having a beer like everybody else, instead of being out there in the cold and the wet and the rain and trying to figure out how to keep a lens clean. That's my lifetime goal is to be inside, having fun with the rest of you folks.
Well, the next time Wind hits the Outer Banks, Ricky, I have a connection on in Manio, so it's well away from the ocean. We'll go out there and we'll invite Jim to come out with us.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
There you go. And one last thing, and I'll throw it over to Scotty and Joey here, but I was going through your YouTube channel earlier and realized, you've got a lot of stuff that isn't hurricanes. You've got tornado video, lightning video. You seem like an all-around weather junkie. I know hurricanes are your favorite, but what other weather stories do you have?
That's very cool, and there was a lot of people on it. There's a June 5th, 2009 tornado. It was southeast Wyoming. I think we were the last ones to get on it, but we were like 35 miles out and heading in from due west. We could see it from 35 miles away, and we're just hoping, and it's just nothing out there it's just a wide open field, and I was just hoping, it's my first one to see, hoping it would stay there, and I pulled off the caravan of cars because man, if I can get it within lens range, then I'm going to shoot it because it's probably going to disappear when I get there. But I pulled over on a road and set up and went through this nice rope out stage and it looked really nice. It was great because we found out people coming in from the other direction, they had lost windshields and they had giant hail, so we just came in through a rain-free slot, and I thought it was pretty sweet. And that was the time the Weather Channel, their crew got right underneath it, and you could look up into it. And so at dinner, everybody met at some place off the interstate, and we were all talking and swapping stories about how we, the egress into that area. It was pretty fun. And I'll do flooding. I did that Mississippi floods. I do the BP oil spills. Whatever I can make a buck on. It doesn't have to be weather.
The Blue Angels once for their 2005 video they put out. I'm a big air show fan myself, so.
Yeah, my dad was Air Force. I grew up, around planes and lived not too far from runways, and they're based in Pensacola, so you get 2 shots at them in July and November, and I was able to get out on the Coast Guard vessel, the Cypress. I don't know how, but that's like the ground zero point, so they come flying right over, and then the guys in the other planes, they had a contest so you could buzz the ship and get the closest, so that made for some great pictures. But yeah, I like to get out with my cameras and experience air shows. I did the BP oil spill, went out with the Coast Guard out to the source, the site where that thick crude was coming up. And I love planes and helicopters. So it gives me a chance to do everything I like.
Sounds like many of my airshow friends. I help run airshowstuff.com, and that sounds exactly like some of our pilots that I know. They're like, let's bust that boat as close as we can get to it.
Yeah, they did. Boy, they got so close they turned it on edge, and I go, oh, no earplugs, and they just blacked it.
I'm betting Skip Stewart was one of those folks, too.
Yeah. That name sounds familiar. I've got some pictures I'll pass along to you.
Alrighty, sounds good. I've got a few things to send you as well. I'm going to jump off and give it to Scotty and Joey, but I really appreciate you jumping on here tonight, and I love the stories, and thanks for the tweets and everything you send all the time. So.
Sure. Yeah. I'll come back anytime you guys need me.
Alrighty, and Scotty, I'll hand it off to you because I'm sure you've got a few more questions. I have to run, but thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you, Ricky. Yeah, Jim, we'll kind of wrap up here in the next few minutes. With you looking at hurricanes and hurricanes being your thing, as you look into this upcoming season, what are your expectations for both the Atlantic and Pacific?
What I'm going to do is I'll hang out here till sometime August, September. I'm thinking if one comes through, it's going to be earlier in the season rather than later. So I'll look at the jet stream and look at the conditions. But I'm going to go to Guam, and then I'm going to just, August, September, October. There's going to be El Nino tracks coming through there, and they haven't been hit in a while. Well, they were hit sort of with dolphin, but yeah, from Guam, I'm going to chase them down. It's a lot harder to fly from here over there. You get over there, you're jet lagged, you're just whooped. It's too hard to really, start island hopping and going after a typhoon if you're over there, it's easier. I likened it. It's like getting on base versus trying to hit a grand slam. Haiyan was very, very rare in that I didn't have a leg that was canceled. They didn't lose my luggage. That was just weird. I don't expect that to be the case all the time.
We were talking about hurricanes and flooding and stuff. Have you ever ventured out to the Northeast in the wintertime and done any nor'easters or anything like that?
I did. I went up there a couple of winters ago, and I did that Nemo blizzard up there in Boston. I think I got the last flight up there. I got the last rental. In fact, they gave me the key, and they said, "We're leaving. Here's the car." And I had a question. I went back in there, and it's locked up. So I go, "All right, shoot, man, it's cold out here, Florida boy in tennis shoes and jeans." So, I go up there and try to work a blizzard. I found a place. I said, "Got to get where the water is, So I found a place called Winthrop, and they had a seawall. It met all my requirements. And at high tide the next morning, there was blowing snow horizontal, and boy, the water was hitting the seawall, coming up over the seawall, just like Galveston during a hurricane. And it flooded the town, and I got some good stuff. But I put that up on YouTube, and it's almost got 2 million hits. And shoot, I'm a warm weather guy.
Well, a few more. Ricky was talking about the most vulnerable city that hasn't seen a hurricane in a long time. What is your favorite place or city here in the United States to kind of take in a hurricane? Which is the most accessible? Things like that.
It's the city that hadn't been hit. That's going to be my favorite city because you can go anywhere usually. One's a bit hit a lot, they lock it down. You can't go anywhere. It's you're miserable. But Tampa's going to be fun to work if that ever happens. Jacksonville, I'd hole up in a neighborhood and just watch all the trees come down. I like the Florida Keys too. I got a place in Key West. If a Cat 5 goes through there, it's a good spot. It's a good spot right in the middle of everything. See, I don't like to shoot a parking lot. That's boring. There's nothing out there. It's not going to give you strong footage. I like just a lot. It's got to be busy and structures, and that I can work with. But I found a place in Key West. That'd be pretty good. A lot of people don't go down there. They think all the bridges will go out. Probably not. So.
I've been to Key West a few times. I wouldn't want to be caught on the 7 Mile Bridge there during.
No, I'll backtrack on that. When the winds pick up, you don't want to be on any bridge. Use that Pensacola Interstate 10 bridge. It's, the spans will lift off because they're not strapped down. They're just gravity holding them down. And then in Bermuda, some people tried to get across that causeway and they got swept over and they didn't make it. So, I learned that bridges, you don't want to be traveling. I know in tornadoes you can travel, but you can always back out of that wind. When you get a hurricane, that water's coming up and the wind's it's going to be everywhere. So it's another beast.
I get scared. I get scared riding on the bridges anyway in the Keys because it's 2 lanes and then somebody decides to pass somebody and then you're like, what
Yeah.
happens if you hit head on? You know, you're going into the
Yeah.
water. So
Yeah, and it happened to some friends of mine.
it's scary. It's
Yeah.
scary. Some of those people are driving.
There's not much place to maneuver on those bridges, and a lot of people are impatient in the Keys trying to get out or get in. So yeah, it's it's especially tricky down there.
Very so. A couple more questions, just general questions. How many cameras do you bring with you when you go out and shoot hurricanes?
This year I hardly have any cameras. I'm waiting for a decent 4K camera to come out. There's not one out right now. They're all terrible and low light. So I have a Canon 5D2 and I have a GoPro 4, 3, and a 3 Plus. So yeah, that's not much. If everything fails, I'll just use my iPhone 6 Plus and that 50 megabits per second. That'll work.
I tell you, the iPhones they do shoot some good video. Just thinking about the Carolinas in general. It's been a while since we've been hit by a major hurricane, and you're pretty well familiar with all the coastline out there and some of the emergency officials. As we enter in the hurricane season with the South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, what would you suggest residents to do to be prepared for the possibility of storms hitting this summer?
Yeah, well, I first look at where you live. Can the water get in your house? And if it can get in your house, you got to go. You're going to be miserable in that, and it could get you hurt. And then the other folks, if water can't get in your house, are you going to stay or are you going to go? If it's a bad one, you're going to go, and then everybody's going to be bumper to bumper. They've had that for a few. Opal and of course Katrina. I watched 100 miles line of bumper to bumper traffic. So you got to figure out: do I want to get in that? Do I want to go to a motel that's overpriced, overcrowded, and won't take pets? You might be better off just staying put. So you got to answer those questions. And plus side is you're already there, and if something goes wrong, you could probably lock it down, or you at least don't have to get out into that mass. I think it's terrible that you get it stuck in 8 hours of traffic trying to evacuate something like Houston for Rita. It's just some things you don't want to do because it's just going to make your situation worse. But certainly you got to have your batteries, your water, especially your water. And backup generation would be really nice. It'd be really nice. You get a generator, and then you can watch cable TV, or you can watch news during the hurricane. But those are expensive. So, but I think people just wait till the end, and there's a rush on Sam's and everybody else for batteries and water. You want to avoid that. You just do that 2 days before everybody gets out there. Make life easier for yourself.
And then, Jim, last question I have, I'm going to kind of make it a fun question. You made an appearance on the Jay Leno show. How was that? Talk to us a little bit about that.
You know, when I was in the Florida Keys, I filmed these two key deer that were boxing. And the Jay Leno folks saw that, and they used it in Jay Leno's monologue. So they knew of me, and they saw me in the Philippines, and they said, we'd like to have you on the show on Wednesday. And I said, I'm still stuck over here. You know, I can't get back in time. But if you wait the next Wednesday, I can do it. Well, the next Wednesday was the day before Thanksgiving, and they said, yeah, it'll work. And so they flew me out and my girlfriend out there, and we stayed in Hollywood, and then went out there, and I went to a room there and had a little care package from Jay Leno, and then he came in there, and then he saw I was in a suit, so he gave me a hard time. He goes, what? No swimsuit? And, he was great. I said, it's at that dry cleaner. I don't know. This is what I got. but so he's sort of telegraphed his first shot at me, and because he's a comedian, and what you see is what you get. That's exactly how he is walking down the street. He drives a different car to work every day, and so anyways, I go through makeup. And they said, see, Jim, see that monitor? This is why you go through makeup. That guy right there, he's got a stain on his jacket. You know, if he'd come through here, we'd have caught that. I said, yeah, you're right. And then they weave me through this maze, and then there's this plywood on the other side. You know, that's where it's at. and they got a guy with a headset. He says, "Okay, Jim, just one last thing here. You got to take 2 steps up, take a left, and 2 steps down, take a right." And I'm going like, "What? You hit me with this maze right at the end here." And I said, he said, "Oh yeah, you know, we're going to commercial, and there's a lot of energy out there. You got to keep it up." I'm going like, "Storm chaser?" Okay. But you know, I went out there, and they make you feel totally relaxed, just like you're there with your chums having a beer. It's and Garth Brooks was already out there. That's another thing they did to me. They said, "Jim, you're going to come out after Garth." I'm going like, "Nobody comes out after Garth. There's nobody going to top that guy. So you can't do this to me."
Oh, that's funny.
And they said, "No, it'll be okay." And then they said, right at the very end, it says, "Oh, you got to talk for an extra minute because Garth doesn't like to talk a lot." I think they're just that wasn't because things were fine out there. I could hear it; it was jamming, and so I walked out there, and then he mentioned something about the shorts, and then we started talking about it. But they ended up turning into like a fundraiser since it was the day before Thanksgiving. They found a good honorable fundraising outfit, and some money went over there and then to the Philippines. So that was good. It's a Storm Chaser on Jay Leno. Reed had done it, and I think the Twister sisters had done it, but it doesn't happen very often, and it's good when you can get some weather in the news or somebody that films it, because I think over the last 30 years the whole weather community has gotten a lot smarter about hurricanes and tornadoes versus what we knew 30 years ago.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, it's just technology is changing every day with new programs coming out, and it's always good to have a good representation for the weather enterprise on national platforms.
Yeah, and I think weather it's a fun thing to, if it's your job, it's a fun job, and it's fun to go out and chase, because everybody, no matter where I go, they've always got a weather story for me. Here, everybody's got a hurricane story, or there was a storm that came through. It's just kind of like everybody can talk about it, and it's no matter where we go out with people. I say, Judy, if you can't find something to talk about, we're stuck, I'll just talk about hurricanes, man. That just gets everybody going. So it usually works.
Hey, weather is one of those constant things that can go to a conversation, and just it's a good starting point.
Yeah, weather's interesting.
It really is. It really is. Well, Joey, I'm going to hand it to you because I know you have the final question and when you like to ask all our guests.
Yeah, before I do that, first thing, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of my idols through weather and all that. Garth Brooks is one of my idols who I haven't met yet, so I'm a little jealous of Jim at the moment here. I always wanted to meet Garth. He seemed like a really nice guy. First thing I want to say, my introduction to Jim was we talked a lot on Twitter back and forth. I think it was Irene. I think it was Irene. We talked back and forth on Twitter a lot, and he mailed me one of his DVDs. Funny story ever. I got that DVD, and my DVD player broke. And I literally went out and bought a DVD player just to watch your DVD you sent me.
The Irene?
I think it was the Irene DVD you mailed me. And like I said, I went to go play it, and my DVD player wouldn't work. And so the next day, I actually went out and bought a DVD player just to watch the DVD you sent me. But,
that was Hopetown, Bahamas.
Right.
That was a good one. I was island hopping on that one.
Yeah, that was it. Jim, again, thanks you on Twitter. Thank you in person. Thank you for sending me that. That was great. I've got a 9-year-old who has already made the decision that he's going to be a doctor in meteorology, and he's probably watched that DVD 15 times. So he loves it. He loves all kinds of storm chasing and things like that. But my final question, we ask all of our guests this. Anybody who's in the weather enterprise who has who's been successful in their business, we always want to ask them, if there's somebody who's watching our program, we have a lot of teachers who watch our program who have kids who want to get into weather or maybe get into photography and videography and into storm chase and things like that. And a lot of younger guys and girls who watch our program. What is the one piece of advice you can give them to help them in their career towards meteorology, videography, storm chase, and the same type of things that you do?
For me, everything is shooting on a fluid head tripod. That's made the difference between stuff I could sell for many different uses versus stuff that I couldn't. That was just back on the shelf. So that's the most important thing, and it's a pain to use that and to keep it stable. Hold it 10 seconds. So that's been the biggest thing that I did. And then, stay with it. Like when I was in the Keys, Jim Leonard always finding water spouts right under my nose. And I said, I've got to figure out how to find water spouts. So I noted when the Weather Service will put out, okay, water spout was sighted here, this location, near this buoy. And then I checked the winds at the buoy and what kind of day it was. And so I'd notice a pattern. If you're sort of investigative and you dig, you'll find out ways to improve and get better at it. Just take the time to look and try to get better and better. I ended up finding a lot more. You look at dark, flat base, tall cumulus clouds going up. You could show up, boom, water spout drops. You can get that good at it. So I would say study it and have fun. That's the main thing, is have fun and try to do well. And now if you want to make money storm chasing, you got to shoot with a tripod, I think. No, don't quit your day job. That business, everybody's got a phone, so you got to compete with that. So maybe it's just a hobby or a little part-time business, but I'm too old to go back to a day job. They won't take me, so I'm stuck with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have a great education and a good career in chemistry as a chemist, then you might not want to chase that dream quite so much. Or
if I was young, I wouldn't even go to college now. I would just save that money because kids are going into debt coming out of college anyway. You start a business with the internet. I don't know. There's all kinds of things. I could have learned this without the chemistry degree. With that chemistry degree, back in the 80s, you were stuck with a low-paying job unless you got a degree. That's just the way it was. But things have changed now. So you can self-teach everything that I've learned. But then you've got to have some funding source, because it takes money to get in. Go on these trips and so you've got to make that back if you want to keep the engine going. So, but I did learn one thing, is how to think, how to problem solve, and how to go and find information that get things that I didn't know. So that was good, and it gave me a good day job. So during the weekends I could film hurricanes, and eventually I had enough stock footage. So
awesome. And my one piece of advice for a hurricane is, remember, it's not the wind that gets you, it's the water, and it's the days after the storm that are worse than anything.
Yeah, I don't stick around. It's miserable after those storms. It's hot. You take cold showers. Any relief, you got to jump in your car and burn precious fuel to turn on the AC. But it may not be too busy. But shoot, if that one big one comes by, and like a few years, 57, 65, and 72, there was three big hurricanes that came through, and those were El Nino years. So. Yeah, I'm expecting to see one. I don't know where it's going to go. It may be the Carolinas. I got a feeling it's going to be something different. But feelings, that they're just feelings. We'll see. Mother Nature, she does what she wants.
No, Jim, you're always welcome in our state. We just hope you don't have any reason to come.
Yeah. It's like everybody says, well, we don't want to hear. We don't care where it comes. Yeah, it takes a long time to recover from a hurricane. They're really tough on a community, and I understand that. Had a lot of homeless friends after Ike hit Pensacola Beach. It's tough. They didn't let people go back to their houses for a couple of months, so it's something you don't want.
Well, oddly enough, even living in western North Carolina in the foothills, technically the foothills, it was a hurricane that got me into weather. I was 8 years old. Hurricane Hugo came right through Catawba County, where I'm from, and that's the storm. I remember being so scared of that. It scared me to death, and I knew even at 8 years old, I said, I'm going to learn everything I can about weather so I'm not scared of it anymore. And that's what got me started. So
I remember that one. We couldn't call the Charlotte office. We had Reichhold Chemicals had an office in Charlotte. We couldn't get through. I said, Why the power out? Why not? That thing hit the coast. It didn't hit Charlotte. There's no way they would lose power. It's too far off the coast. Well, we learned a lot of things after that hurricane.
Yeah, it was definitely a game changer. All right, Scotty, you want to wrap this up, and we'll let Jim get back to it. I'm sure there's probably another storm brewing, and he's already got his mind headed towards it.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off what you guys were just talking about, we're going to have Chris Justice on in the August the 26th. He's going to talk about the inland effects of hurricanes, and I'm sure Hurricane Hugo will be discussed, Hurricane Francis and Ivan that hit in the Western Carolinas back in September of 2004. It's going to be a good show, so that'll be kind of tie in with what you guys were just talking about. And Jim, we do appreciate you coming on tonight, and maybe if your schedule allows it and we get a hurricane that comes anywhere near the Carolina coast or Georgia or Virginia and you're chasing it, maybe we can get you to come back on the show after all that has kind of calmed down and talk to us a little bit about your experiences with it.
Sure, that sounds good. Don't wish you guys get one, but you know that Outer Banks, that's a hot spot, like Biloxi and the Florida Keys. You're gonna see them there.
I'm telling you, the Carolinas are overdue for a storm. I mean, it's been a while, so we'll hope that it doesn't happen. But if it does, we know you'll be there covering it, and hopefully we can get your stories after the event. And before we leave, Jim, go ahead and promote your Twitter feed if our followers and listeners aren't following you already.
Yeah, I got like 13,000 followers. I got like 8,000 of them overnight when I was in Haiyan, but. Yeah, it's at extreme storms. Every now and then I'll say something on there. Or if I'm out chasing a typhoon and I've got something good to share, some good pictures, I'll get that up there. So that's probably the best way to find out what I'm doing day by day.
I think it was one of the Mexico hurricanes. Your last update, I think, was something about the doors getting blown in on the hotel or something. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, that was Haiyan over there.
Was it Haiyan? Man, that was one of the storms, and I remember seeing your last update, and then you went like hours without another update.
Yeah, so that was Haiyan, and you guys said that they really didn't know what was coming. They're serving breakfast. The walls are glass, and I said, you might be able to get some scrambled eggs in here before this thing hits. So I said, if they're serving, I'm going to get my last hot meal. I went in there, and I got like 3 bites into the scrambled eggs, and then the door blew open, and I said, you're not going to be able to do this. And I told them, I said, don't worry about the door. Just get the heck out of here. Trust me on this one. This whole area is just going to be glass pieces, and it was. So that was close.
I remember that night watching your Twitter feed. I kept going back, like, is he going to update? Is he all right? I haven't heard from him in a while. So, but yeah. And where's a good place we can buy any of your DVDs, things like that? Let's try to make you some money.
I sold them all. I never printed up any new ones. So I'm DVD-less.
So Joey, we're gonna come get your DVD then.
Okay. I got it. It's Stacy has it at her house actually. So but yeah, I still have it. So
are people still buying DVDs? I
don't know.
I was wondering. Yeah, we're kind of in between DVDs, Blu-rays, and
Let's call Netflix and get you on there.
Yeah.
We'll just put your videos on Netflix.
That'd be a lot easier. Just upload to them, and then I don't have to print them, and then I don't have to distribute them. I remember selling them out of the back of my car, and Ike on the causeway or on that road there by the seawall one time.
Awesome. All right, Scotty, why don't you wrap us up? We'll save the house.
We can do it. And Jim, once again, thanks for coming on tonight. Next week we are talking about weather and sports. We're going to have Stuart Williams on, who is the meteorologist. Well, I can't say that word tonight for some reason. Meteorologist with the PGA Tour. We have Brian Niendorf and Aaron Studwell, who both do some meteorology work for NASCAR. So they're going to be on next Wednesday, and then after that we have Ham Radio and the first Storm Spotter talk with John Crow and Lee Sussman. And to round out the month of June, we have author Holly Bailey, who just wrote the book Mercy of the Sky, talking about the tornadoes out in Oklahoma. So looking forward to that. And then, again, make sure you're following Jim on Twitter and keep up with his adventures. It's a great Twitter feed to follow. He keeps you up to date with everywhere and sends up some great updates. So, Jim, once again, thanks for coming on. And everyone else, we appreciate you watching tonight, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great rest of the week.
Bicycle.